So that seems to me less risky than being totally out of control. And what I mean by being totally out of control, I mean going to a job for a company that you don't make the decisions at, for a boss that tells you what to do, and just one day your company can say, oh yeah, we're going to lay you off. That seems incredibly risky. Now that the world is changing so much and a lot of people are suffering and so much is different than it was even a year ago, and it gives me, I've been doing a lot of thinking about risk, because as I now have a little bit, and I'm not going to say I'm where I want to be, I'm not going to say I'm not still building and growing and working, but now that I feel like I have something to lose, I've been thinking on and mulling over this idea of risk. Everybody thinks that I am a big risk taker. Everybody thinks that as an entrepreneur, you take a lot of risks. And that's true. To get anywhere in life, you do have to take a risk. It was a risk for me to not go get a job and instead start a small business. But I don't know if I believe that. I don't know that it's not more risky to be an employee at a company that you don't know if it's going to succeed. You're just being told what to do all day, and you have absolutely no control of your own destiny. And I know that that's not all employment relationships. Like, there's a lot of employees that very much do control their own destiny. I'm not necessarily referring to those folks, but what was it? 17% of Americans lost their job in March when COVID hit. 17%. So that's 17 out of every 100 people that wanted to have a job and had a job and on March 1st didn't have a job at the end of April. That sounds pretty darn risky to me. So what's more risky? I mean, yeah, when you think about the unicorns, the Steve Jobs, the Mark Zuckerberg, the Elon Musk, of course they're taking massive risk. Of course they built massive companies, but I think Americans have a wacky perception of risk. I think Americans think that entrepreneurship is risky, think that investment is risky, think that owning assets is risky, when in reality, having a job is a lot more risky, in my opinion, because you are completely dependent on things outside of your control. And I think that's the factor that really is at play here. How much of your life do you control? How much of your destiny do you control? That's what I think risk is. Like, having control over it, that's less risky. Like, if a poker player feels like they know the odds, they know what the odds are, and they're going to accept those odds and they're going to act accordingly, and they know what they can control, they know what two cards they have, and they know what they can't control, that seems less risky to me than, I guess poker's a pretty poor example, but as an entrepreneur, I feel like I can control what happens. Obviously, I'm dependent on, I feel terrible for a lot of the event companies and restaurants and hospitality companies that have very healthy business models that did have a lot of things in control, and this is just an event that wiped them out. This is a one in 100-year flood, or whatever they say. It's a 100-year flood. But me as an entrepreneur, I feel like I control a lot of it. I control the people that I hire. I control the customers that I go after. I control everything about my life. I control how I spend my money. I control how I make my money. I control where I invest my money. It's all in my control. So that seems to me less risky than being totally out of control. And what I mean by being totally out of control, I mean going to a job for a company that you don't make the decisions at, for a boss that tells you what to do, and just one day your company can say, oh yeah, we're going to lay you off. Just one day, totally out of your control. We're going to lay you off. That seems incredibly risky. Incredibly risky to me. That just seems like the American risk, the consensus on risk and the way people feel about risk is a little bit wacky, because I think entrepreneurs, in my opinion, I took less risk than a lot of folks who went and worked at companies and ended up getting laid off in March. So I don't know what else I have to say about this really, but if you do entrepreneurship right, if you go about it the right way, if you make unemotional decisions, you can really control a lot more risk than you think. A lot more is in control than you think. I mean, me and a kind of a silly example of this is me and my partner Dan. We early on in our business, we complained about a lot of things that we thought were out of our control. We complained about the economic environment. We complained about how hard it was to hire employees. We complained about the commercial real estate market when it came time to get warehouses. We complained that nobody wanted to work hard. We complained that our employees were messing up. We thought all these things were out of our control. We thought all those things were out of our control. And what we realized that as entrepreneurs, a lot more is in our control than we think. A lot more is. Everybody's dealing with the same issues. So you can have an advantage. You can have an advantage when it comes to securing real estate. You can have an advantage when it comes to finding good employees if you actually market to employees. We learned, we can't just hope that employees come walking in the door to our company to work for us. We have to get out and work for them just like we work for customers. We realized that we could control the mistakes that our employees were making. It wasn't their fault, it was our fault. Our systems weren't good enough. We realized that we could control how many customers we got by how creative our marketing was and how effective it was and how good it was and how our systems were around customer acquisition. So a lot of people think that entrepreneurs are just taking risk. No, it's calculated risk. And they arguably, in my opinion, have a lot more control over their life, over their situation than folks who aren't entrepreneurs. So take that as you please. Hey guys, I have big news. I recently revamped my sales and customer service team at my self-storage company using folks in South Africa. Listen to this English accent.
Hi there, my name is Anton and I'm a sales professional from Gqeberha or Port Elizabeth, which is in the eastern province of South Africa. I've been in sales for about 8 years now with experience in hardware sales with some of the leading brands in the world, such as Canon, Panasonic, and more recently Red Bull.
Okay, now the surprising part. The person you just listened to is available for hire right now, and they're asking $9 an hour. If you want an introduction, if you want to hire this person into your business or at least interview them, send me an email, nick@sweatystartup.com, and I can make an introduction and offer you $1,000 off the recruiting fee. nick@sweatystartup.com.